to Hope Encounter Live. I am so glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about a personal story. I'm going to be sharing part of my story with you guys, and I'm really excited about it. I'll be honest, a little bit nervous about it just because it is my story and it is a little vulnerable, but I really felt God's leading to go here and to share this with you guys. So, journey along with me, and I'm so glad you're here. Again, welcome to Hope Encounter, and we're going to get started. So I wanted to ask a question. Have you ever felt trapped inside of your own life? Like, no matter what you did, you couldn't escape the pain or the fear or the depression, anxiety, those types of things. That's where I was until I made a choice. I decided that I was going to stop living like a victim. I was going to stop focusing all of my attention on all the things that were wrong in my life and bad and the pain in my body, and I decided to change that and start moving towards my health. I was tired of being caged by chronic pain and intermittent depression, where it would be there and then I would be okay. I was really good at wearing the mask, but inside was kind of numb a lot of times, not just not present. So I remember sitting in the physical therapist's office, and I was just bawling as I was telling him I chose to kind of pull back the veil for the first time and go, this is what I'm dealing with. This is it. This is all, raw and real. And I need help. I can't do this alone. I don't know how to do this alone. And, it's kind of, that honesty and vulnerability, kind of like today, but where you're like, okay, I'm literally shaking in my boots, but I have to do this. I have to be honest. I have to get real and get raw and be vulnerable, because I can't do it on my own. And if no one knows what I'm really dealing with, then no one knows how much help I really need. And so I decided to just bear it all and be honest. So let me back up on, how did I get there in the first place? Why was I even in the physical therapist room? Why was I bawling? What was so hard? So a lot of you guys know, some of you may not know yet. I nearly died of allergy, asthma, attack. I had bronchitis and I got really, really sick, and I ended up stopping breathing about 8 years ago. And after that, it's been quite the journey of healing and, dealing with anxiety and panic and deep depression. And God kind of walking me through all of that, using creativity, using my community, bringing hope back into my life. And I've been doing well. But I've been dealing with chronic pain, always in pain in multiple places in my body, my feet especially, just always dealing with some type of pain in my body. And after getting sick, I gained a lot of weight in about 6 months to a year. I gained a lot of weight, probably about 70 pounds. And my, because of that, and because of the pain that was already in, I began to have atrophy in my body, and I gained that much weight, and my pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so, I really felt trapped inside of my body a lot of times. I just felt, I can't move to get healthy because I hurt so much. But if I don't move, I won't get healthy and I'll stay hurting. So I felt trapped. On the outside, I kept up the appearances of joy, and I really did. I did have moments of joy. I'm a happy person. I'm a joyful person. But inwardly, when I got quiet with myself, it was dark. I felt a lot of shame. I felt a lot of guilt, that being such a bright person and yet feeling so heavy in my person, in my body, in my soul. um the pain stole a lot from my family. We couldn't go do things. We couldn't just, you know, go for a walk, go for a hike, go for a bike ride. We couldn't just do those things because the pain in my body was so intense that I just had no motivation. And so I decided I would hide behind crocheting. You know, I would crochet and watch TV and just kind of isolate. And on the outside, you know, it looked like I was being present, watching movies with my family and being engaged in that way. But I was totally isolated. I was very numb inside. Um, didn't really feel a whole lot of hope, to be honest. Was just kind of burying myself in, I'm still producing something. I'm being creative. Look at me, you know, kind of that like that facade that we put on sometimes. But it wasn't real. Yes, I enjoyed creating. Yes, I love to crochet. Yes, I love to watch movies with my family. All of those are true. But in my heart, I was withdrawn and I was isolated and I was very numb. Because I didn't feel hope. I didn't feel like, you know, I guess in a way, I kind of was like, well, I guess this is the life for me because I don't know what to do. I would go to church and I would be in, you know, excruciating pain and I would ask for prayer. And occasionally, you know, the pain would relieve a little bit, but um, it was all, you know, it's just there. It was just there. I began to believe that I was powerless to pain and depression and just, okay, this is my life. This is it. Um, you know, my attempts at getting healthy were short lived. You know, like I said before, if I decided to go for a walk and went for a walk, then the next day I would be in so much more pain from moving, from being on my feet, that I wouldn't be able to move for a few days after just because the pain was so strong. And so it was just this vicious cycle that I was in. And I finally hit this breaking point where I started asking myself hard questions and I started going, okay, Charity, like, is this the life that you want? Is this who you are? Is this who you're accepting yourself to be? Are you going to stay stuck? Are you going to stay trapped in this cycle of, you know, immobility and you know, depression and isolation and feeling numb? Is this what you're choosing? You know, because we choose, right? So I began to realize that it wasn't a God issue. It wasn't him not healing me. It wasn't, you know, him not fixing the situation, but it was a me issue. It was my problem. It was my my issue to fix. And not in the sense of like I have to do it all myself, but I had to make a choice in my heart. I had to get to the point in my health where I had to get my want to strong enough to want to decide to do the things, decide to do what it was going to take to get healthy and to get help. Because, you know, like I said, I could not do this on my own. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't figure it out. Everything I tried was short lived, and I would just give up because the pain was so bad, was so intense. You know, I struggled with guilt over our finances, you know, past hospital bills from when I got sick, and, you know, different needs that came up. It kept costing money. In a lot of ways, I felt like I was just this financial drain to my family. It was really hard. It was really heavy. And so getting help even felt out of reach because I knew that getting help was going to cost my family money. And I didn't believe at the time that I was worth the money to get the help to get better. And so I really had to kind of overcome some of that thinking too. And I finally decided, you know what, I'm gonna call my doctor. I'm gonna get some blood work done. I'm going to get x-rays done, have them look at my feet and see what in the world is going on. And so I got the x-rays. They referred me to a foot doctor. You know, we ended up getting insoles for my shoes to get my arches the right support and all of that. And then I was referred to physical therapy. So when I went to my physical therapy appointment, like I said before, when I started, I sat on the chair and I just laid it all out. I just was honest. I just bawled. I shared all of my pain, all of my shame, all of my grief, and I was just completely honest. There was grief even of what I had become. It's like, this isn't me, but I feel powerless to this. And so I shared it. And the physical therapist was amazing. He listened to me. He was so gracious with all of my stuff. And I really felt seen and heard. And he set me up to get some therapy and get started on my feet. And I realized that as I went to the physical therapy appointments, that it wasn't just a physical therapy appointment. It was so much more than that. It was me finally deciding to get the help I needed to show up for myself and begin to move forward and to begin to heal, take the action I needed to take to heal and to get better. I had small wins where, I would go for 3 or 4 days with no pain in my feet. And it was like, I can't believe it. I haven't had no pain for years. Um, and I was getting hopeful. I was like, I'm going to be able to walk soon. I'm going to be able to do these things. I'm going to be able to be active and get some of the weight off of me finally and get healthy and play with my kids again and do things again without the chronic pain weighing me down. And then that summer, my brother passed away suddenly, and so that grief kind of knocked me off course. We went to Wyoming for the summer and spent 2 weeks there, and so my physical therapy stopped. And that was really hard for me, to be honest, because I had gained so much momentum. I was moving forward, I was healing, I was getting better, and then I had to just stop. And obviously, it was also the grief of losing my brother. It was like really like blindsiding. Um, and it kind of pulled the rug out from underneath of me. When we got back that later that summer, I continued the physical therapy and began to get those gains back, those momentum, that those pain-free days. And the new year came, and so our insurance deductible was no longer met, and the insurance cost quadrupled, and we couldn't afford it anymore. So I couldn't go to physical therapy anymore. And I felt angry, I felt hurt, I felt ashamed, because here I was draining the family finances again. Just taking up space, taking up finances. Um, but I decided that I would do what I could at home. And so I did the stretches and, some of the exercises that I could. And, kind of tapered off a little bit, to be honest. Wasn't as consistent as I wanted to be. But then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go see my doctor again, and I'm going to tell her what's going on, tell her where I'm at, and get some more help. So I went and saw my doctor, shared my story again, bursting into tears, shared it vulnerably, shared it honestly. Like, I need help. I can't do this. And my doctor gave me a plan, and she said, cut sugar, cut gluten, and increase your protein and your vegetables, and decrease your fruit, because fruit is still sugar. And I want you to start swimming 4 days a week. And she wanted me to swim for an hour, 4 days a week. So the next day after the appointment, Tyler and I went down to the YMCA and we bought a membership, and we ordered a cookbook for meal planning. And we began that journey. The next day after we got the membership, I went swimming. I showed up, and that's when the real test came. That's when it, it got real, because I didn't know how to swim. I had no idea how to swim. I would always tell people, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to swim. I can back float. I could save my life if I really needed to, but I don't know how to swim. And so I went and I showed up to the pool in, just me, just here I am. I don't know what to do. I didn't know any of the people. I was just, the newbie, and I was terrified of the water, and I didn't know how to swim. So I started to back float. I did my best back floating, and I would every once in a while I would splash myself or someone else would splash my face, and I would literally instantly go into a panic that I was going to drown. It was just over. I was going to drown. It was so instant. And so I really had to work through that and go, okay, the water's on my face. It's okay. I don't have to breathe it in. I can do this. Just stay calm. So it was really a lot of God, like, you're fine. You're fine. Just keep swimming. It was like, Dory, just keep swimming. So I got onto YouTube and I began to watch some swimming tutorials. And I realized that I wasn't even doing a backstroke properly. I was kind of doing a combined little thing that I had made up at some point during my life. And so I taught myself the proper backstroke, and then continued to work myself through, those pain and panic moments, or not pain, but the panic moments, reminding myself that the pool is only 3.5 feet. I can stand up whenever I need to. I'm not going to drown. I'm fine. Um, I felt embarrassed. I I tend to have this high expectation on myself that I should just know how to do things. So I felt a lot of shame oftentimes of, you know, I- what's your problem? Why are you struggling so much? I was really hard on myself. But God began to change my heart, and he began to um, rewrite my narrative to myself as I kept showing up and I kept showing up and I kept showing up. And I became to get to the point where I wasn't showing up because I needed to lose weight. I was showing up because I loved my body and I loved myself. And I found that I was worth it. I was worth showing up for. I was worth taking the time to do the exercises, to shed the weight, to get healthy, and to become pain free. I was worth it. And so, the exercise became not a shameful thing or a punishment of me being overweight, but it became, this is me loving me. I'm showing up for myself. I get to show up. I get to say yes to me in this moment, to God in this moment. And God began to share dreams and strategies and ideas. And it was like light breaking through. The pain faded and the weight has dropped and my energy levels have rose up. I have way more energy than I used to have. And I've begun to live again, and I'm excited for life, and I'm thriving again. And that's just kind of been that journey of me and God and swimming, and the analogy of life that it brings, and all the things that he's shown me through swimming, and learning how to overcome the panic, learning how to teach myself how to swim, teach myself different strokes, and learn how to swim in a straight line. Just so many things that he's talked me through and taught me. And I realized that swimming, it wasn't just about swimming, it was really so much about my life. And so today, I'm still showing up, I'm still on the journey, I'm still swimming, I'm still showing up for myself and listening as I swim to what God is showing me, what he's sharing with me, and how he's growing me inside. And I'm not a victim anymore. I made that choice. I'm a powerful person, and I get to choose what kind of life I want to create. And so I realized that and began to make those steps. Pain and depression and fear, anxiety, panic, they don't control me anymore. I have overcome them in so many different ways. It would take me hours to, go through all of the things. But he really has delivered me. He really has healed my heart and my mind, and caused me to love myself the way that he loves me, and to receive myself the way that he receives me, and to take delight in taking care of my body and getting healthy and making good food choices. It's a transformation in his presence. As I listen to him, as I keep showing up, as I keep leaning in, I say, look up, lock eyes, and lean in. And that's been my journey since I got sick 8 years ago. That's been my journey, is look up, Charity, look at God. Lock eyes with the one who made you. Lean in, listen to him, listen to what he's showing you, follow his strategies, and come out transformed. So in the pool, I've learned to lean into him and trust his breath. I've learned how to swim a forward crawl, and putting my face in the water was absolutely, completely terrifying at first. Like, absolutely terrifying. I couldn't even wrap my brain around the thought of me putting my face in the water on purpose and trying to breathe and believing that I wasn't going to drown myself. It was real. I mean, it sounds so silly, but it was really real for me. And over time, I've gained that skill and learned where the breath is, learned the rhythm of the stroke, and learned his rhythm and learned his breath. It's like I said, it's such an analogy for life, for my life, of keeping his pace, staying with him, trusting his breath, knowing that he's there to carry me through and to be with me through every single thing I go through. So it started with that choice. It started with the decision to get better and to get help, and it's just continued from there. We've all experienced those cages of lies and grief and hardship in our lives, and those hard times, they mark us. But they don't get to define us, and they don't get to cage us in and keep us trapped. We actually hold the key to our cage, and that key is a decision. It's deciding, it's saying, you know what? I'm powerful, and I'm going to choose the kind of life that I'm going to build. And so we get to unlock ourselves. We get to unlock our life and lean into God and get his strategy and then follow it out. We get to show up. And yes, it takes so much work. It takes so much effort. It takes so much energy, but God meets you there every single time. And so our lives are written, one decision at a time, one decision at a time. Every moment we're making a choice. Do we put that thing in our mouth that we know isn't healthy, or do we do the other thing, follow the strategy, and put the healthy thing in our mouth? Do we sleep in because we're exhausted, or do we get up and do we show up for ourselves? Do we love ourselves enough to show up and do the hard work and continue to do the hard work and be consistent and love ourselves well the way that God loves us? We can't control everything that happens to us in life. Real things happen, like my brother's death. We can't control those things, but we still have self-control and we still have choice, and we make the decisions, and we are powerful people. And so, I believe that we either get better or we get bitter. I was at the point, prior to my decision to get better, that I was getting bitter. I was, it was dark. It was yucky inside, but I chose to get better. I chose to unlock myself. I chose to say yes to God and go, God, I don't know what the plan is. I don't know how to fix this, but you do. So you guide me and you show me and you bring the right people in and the right words and the right strategy, and I will do it. I'll show up. And so, the transformation comes through the decision to get better, the decision to show up, the decision to look up, lock eyes, lean in, and show up. Take action. It takes action. We can't just wish the things better. We have to show up. We have to do the things. And so, I just want to pray for you guys as I wrap this up. I just pray that you would feel hope arise in your heart again. The areas in your life that feel dark and hopeless and maybe depressed, or you have anxiety about, I just pray right now that God would flood every area with his light, with his love. I pray that your ears, mind, and heart would be open to hear what God is saying to you, and that you would hear his strategy for your healthy and thriving life. That it's not about you mustering up, everything, but it's about you partnering with him to show up and listen and continue to show up and continue to listen. It's a journey. So, and I just pray again that you would be awakened in his presence, that you would find the fullness of his joy and his peace and his hope and his healing. And as I close, this is your story. How are you going to write it? How are you going to make those decisions in those areas that you need to change? It's time to rise up. It's time to change those things. It's time to surrender it to God and give God it all and say, God, what is your strategy? How do I do this? Who's to help me? How do I get the help that I need to do the thing? And God, give me the strength and the courage to show up and to keep showing up and to keep showing up. All right. So I just bless you with that. God, I just thank you for each person that hears this, that they would be inspired, that they would be just called up higher, and that they would see those areas in their hearts and truly surrender them to you in Jesus' name. So thank you so much for joining me today. Remember that when we encounter God, we can transform our lives. And when we do that, we're going to thrive in him and in every part of our story, and in our health, in our journey of creativity, in our family, in our marriages, in our relationships, at our jobs. When we encounter him, he transforms our lives and we get to thrive. So keep showing up, keep writing your story, keep giving him your yes, and keep breaking through, keep moving forward. As we've been talking about with Joshua, as you give him your yes, as you say, yes, God, he goes before you and he begins to fight those giants on your behalf, and you begin to have freedom and breakthrough. So this is the season. It's a new season. It's time to come out of wishing, and move into having, into possessing it, into taking it, and being that powerful person that God created you to be, and moving forward in him, in partnership with him. All right. So thank you so much for joining me today for Hope Encounter Live. I will see you.